Hey everybody, welcome into the Psych with Mike library. I am Dr. Michael Mahan. If you are familiar with Psych with Mike, this is going to be a little different than what you are accustomed to. And if you're not familiar with Psych with Mike and you've come here for what today's episode is all about, then let me tell you a little bit about me and a little bit about the station, a little bit about the show. Psych with Mike, I am Dr. Michael Mahan. I am a clinical psychologist and professional counselor in St. Louis, Missouri. I primarily make my living doing psychotherapy and teaching psychology at Washington University here in St. Louis. I am also an avid model builder. I love the hobby of building models. I've been doing it since I was a very small child. This is the first time that I've made a video. There are a lot of channels on the YouTubes that are about model building, and I'm going to talk about a couple of my favorites, but these are certainly not the only ones that exist. So as the show goes on, I'm going to talk about a few of the guys that I really, really like. And the first guy that I would talk about is Augie Gonzalez. And if I pronounce anybody's name wrong, I truly, sincerely apologize if it gets back to you and somebody says, oh, Dr. Mahan mispronounced your name. I sincerely, deeply apologize. But Augie is at Interstellar Modelers, and I really, really like what he does. I have taken a lot of his advice and used it in my own work. Another guy that I use extensively when I am thinking about a build and thinking about how I'm going to put something together is Boyd Crompton from the TrekWorks model station shop show. Lou Dalmazzo at Aztek Dummy is another guy that I really, really like. He also produces and sells mass that you can get to use when you are building ships like the Enterprise or other ships that have what is called an Aztec pattern. Chris Olson from Models by Chris is a guy that I think is fantastic and a really, really good watch. And then finally, Tom Piedmont at ModelMan Tom is a legend in the industry. I don't know what he's doing nowadays, but he's got a station that has a lot of really, really fantastic information on it. So you can't go wrong with checking out any of those guys. I'm going to put those links in the show notes here. But what we are here to talk about today is the Ban Dai 5000 Star Destroyer. I was talking to a client yesterday. He actually had come back to my office for the first time in a while after the pandemic. And in my professional office, I have a lot of models. I have a lot of memorabilia. If you look on the bookshelves behind me here in the library, you can see a lot of stuff that I'm into: Batman, Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica. There's a Voltron up there as well. That's what my professional office looks like. So I have a lot of the stuff that I love in my professional office. I want my office to represent who I am. If people are put off by that, then they're probably not going to like working with me anyway. And I've never ever had anybody who's come to my office and said, oh, this looks like a kid's playground, I don't want to work with you. But he was looking around and he said, oh, what is it about Star Wars? Why do you love it? And I said, for me, I was 13 years old on May 25th, 1977, when Star Wars premiered, and I went to see the movie on opening day and have seen every single release of Star Wars on opening day since then. And it just transformed me. It transformed my entire worldview. It was the first time that I saw something and said, wow, this is something that I feel like defines me as a person. And so I really got into Star Wars, and I was, it was the wheelhouse, 13 years old, didn't have anything better to do, would spend my entire summer in 77 watching Star Wars, saw the movie 77 times on the big screen, which is ironic since it was released in 1977, and have seen it many more times in both VHS, DVD, and other types of releases since then, now on digital. But the thing that really was amazing was the opening scene of episode 4, where the Imperial Star Destroyer is chasing the Rebel blockade runner over the surface of the desert planet Tatooine, and the immensity of the Star Destroyer it just filled the entire screen. It was amazing, and it made me want to live in that universe. So we're here to talk about my build. Now, what I am not going to do, like a lot of people do, is go through and show you step by step how I've put the model together. I'm going to reveal the finished model, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've done to the model, but it's not going to be a step-by-step build, because I think there's lots of that out there. You can find that at any of these sites that I've already talked about, and if you want to look that kind of information up. So here is the reveal of my Imperial Star Destroyer. And what I really like about my version that I haven't seen before is that this is a depiction of the opening scene of episode 4. So you have the Rebel blockade runner that is outrunning the Imperial Star Destroyer, and it is over the base, which is a simulation of the planet Tatooine. So the base is the large base from round 2, which a lot of people who are into models know about, and it is an extremely versatile base. It can do anything. You can paint up the base in a lot of really interesting ways. So it is a really great model base for this kind of thing, especially when you're going to light the model. Now, this lighting kit that I have, the Ban Dai 15000 Star Destroyer, is an absolutely amazing model. If you've never seen one, you can't believe how much that they pack, how much detail gets packed into this small size. So the Vesda 127, or the 1/2700th scale, is probably at least twice as large as this, and it's a beautiful model, there is no doubt, but the scale, the 1/5000 scale BanDai, loses absolutely no detail, even though it's a smaller scale, and so it fits in a lot of places that Vesda model's not going to fit. That's a monster, and you have to have a lot of real estate to be able to display that model. This is a beautiful representation of the Star Destroyer, but is small enough that you can put it in a relatively small space. So the lighting kit is not the lighting kit that comes with the BanDai kit. So my son got this for me for my birthday, and I got the lighted version but didn't use the lighting kit. Now, I've seen a lot of builds on the internet of this kit with the lighting kit of BanDai installed, and it looks beautiful. And if you want to build your kit that way, you can't go wrong. It builds up a really nice kit. But I prefer to go ahead and put my own lights in, because I like to have more control over how the lights look and what they do. So I put in a different lighting kit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the specifics of that in just a second. But it is operated off of a Tenacontrols. So Ralph Taglia, I think is his name, is the president of Tenacontrols, and what I can tell you is that I ordered this light kit just as the pandemic was starting, and he took his work home and continued to ship out orders even though his professional office was shut down, and that was so awesome of him to do. I talked to him on the phone about the delivery of the lighting kit because I was worried that the controller board wouldn't come because of the pandemic, and it literally came 2 days after I talked to the man on the phone. So thank you so much, Ralph. You were a lifesaver on that. But basically, this is a wireless kit. So the control is the control board is operated off of this remote control, And the reason why I love that is you don't have to worry about switches. You don't have to put toggle switches or anything on the base of the model to be able to operate your model lights. And it has 4 channels, so you can have 4 different modes. And what's really cool about that is that now the Star Destroyer can light up in stages. So the first mode turns on the lights on the trench and on the surface detail. The second channel turns on lights in the superstructure and the bridge. You may or may not be able to see that well on the video, but I will show you some pictures of that in just a minute. The third channel turns on the spotlights along the trench, and the fourth channel turns on the engines, and you can't necessarily see those in the video. I can turn the model a little bit and show you what that looks like. And as you can see, I chose to go ahead with blue color on the engines. Some people prefer white. That is perfectly fine with me. I wouldn't argue if somebody said, oh, I would prefer to have white on the engines. I think that is perfectly acceptable. I wanted there to be a little bit of contrast between the engine color and the lights that light up in the superstructure. I think that if you look at a lot of different pictures, sometimes the engines look tinted white, sometimes they look tinted a light blue. But the LEDs that are firing the engines here are what are called breathing LEDs, so they flicker and they give you a very convincing engine thruster effect. So if you are interested in that, then when you look for your LEDs, you're going to want to look for breathing LEDs. So now I'm going to show you a couple of detailed pictures. So this first shot that you're looking at is the detail of the blockade runner. So in my model, the blockade runner is out in front, is depicted as running away from the Star Destroyer. In the original kit, Bandai gives you like a framework stand, and the Imperial or the Rebel blockade runner and the Millennium Falcon actually are in an armature that comes out of that stand. That looks fine too. I like the more dynamic. I wanted a more dynamic representation, and so I chose to go ahead and suspend the blockade runner out in front of the Star Destroyer as it's passing over the surface of Tatooine. So this picture is the detail of the Millennium Falcon. So you can see that, I mean, it is tiny compared to the Star Destroyer, and that means that the Millennium Falcon in this kit is a very, very small piece. But even though that's the case, in this next picture you'll see that the Easter egg that I have is the Millennium Falcon on the back of the bridge as it is depicted in The Empire Strikes Back. So I really like the way in which the scale of the 3 different models come together in this depiction of the Star Destroyer. So let me talk to you a little bit about the surface detail. This is a picture of the gun detail, which when you first take the pieces out of the box, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, oh, I don't know if there's a lot of detail here. Once you put the wash on it, I promise you that detail is going to jump out and it is going to astonish you what it looks like in the finished version of the model. Now, I tend to use oil washes for my detailing. I know that Augie has talked about in his version of the Bandai Star Destroyer that he prefers to use some type of wash solution, either from MiG Ammo or from Vallejo. A lot of different manufacturers put out a very specific wash. So it's a wash, it's a very thin, usually acrylic, that you can actually tap onto the surface and it runs into the detail. Those look fantastic. I like the oil wash, you take a little bit of oil paint and thin it with turpenoid, and then you can brush it over areas of the model and then wipe it off. And if you need a little extra scrubbing power, you just dip a Q-tip in turpenoid to be able to take off excess. I like the way that that looks, so it's just dependent on your own preference how you like to do your weathering. Now, the way that I did the lighting, here's a picture of the engines back on, and this is a picture of the trench, so an up-close picture of the trench detail. As you can see, the lighting looks really fantastic along the trench, and these smaller spotlights are called SMDs. So I picked up some SMDs from Model Railroader, but you can get them from HDA Modelworx as well, and I'll put links on the show notes for both of those sites as well. And both of them sell lots of different kinds of LEDs. These SMDs, what was great about them is that they came already pre-wired, so they already had the resistors attached to them to be plugged into. I just glued them into the superstructure underneath the top of the hull before I glued the hull down and got them in place, and they just turned out fantastic. I was really, really happy with the way that that turned out. Now, for me, what I did is that in this next picture, you're going to see the instructions, and it shows the trench detail. So there's a trench, a channeling detail of white that fills the inside of the entire hull. And that is used to diffuse the light that comes in the lighting kit and shine it specifically in the areas that you want the light to come out, but keep it blocked from areas that you don't want it to come out. And that works really, really well. And what I did is took light tape, so small SMDs that are soldered together on a strip, and put those in that channel. So I put 3 in the back of this channel and then 3 in the front of this channel. I put 6 in the nose of the hull, and then 3 on top in this next slide. This area right here that you see is what shines up into the, or is inside of the superstructure. So I put 3 strip LEDs, 3 light tape LEDs shining up into the top of the superstructure, and that lit the entire superstructure very, very evenly. Looks really, really good. So then in this slide, this shows the bridge construction detail. I just put 3 strip lights up on top of that bridge detail, and that lit up the entire bridge very, very well and convincingly. So overall, I was super, super happy with the way that the model turned out. Here's a picture of the landing bay. So these were taken in full daylight. All of these pictures that I'm showing you were taken in full room light. And so you can still see the lighting effects very, very well. So that's what I really like about this kit, is in a darkened room, the thing is incredibly bright, but even in regular daylight, you can tell that the model is lit, which is not always true in models. And so I really, really liked that. Now, one of the things that I do differently is, instead of using, and this is a picture of the controller board that I got from Tenacontrols. What I like about that is that it's got this connector, so you can disconnect the connector from this place here where it plugs into the board and do all of your soldering and wiring, and then just plug that into the board and you're good to go. It's super simple. Tenacontrols. I used to use ManMad Lighting exclusively for all my lighting kits, and now ManMad Lighting has merged with Tenacontrols, and everything that they put out is just absolutely fantastic. But instead of using heat shrink tubing, what I use is this liquid electrical tape. And what I like about that is you can brush that on anywhere, and it is super light blocking. So even when I put my LEDs in the back of the engine housing, so a 3mm LED fits perfectly in those engine slots, and takes obviously then 5 LEDs. Well, actually no, so 7, so 4 and 3. So 7 LEDs, but they fit perfectly in, and you get a really, really nice bright engine effect when you put those LEDs in. So I put the LEDs into the channel of the engine thrusters themselves, then hot glued those in, and then covered that all with that electrical tape for light blocking, and it turned out fantastic. So there was no light leakage, and it really, really created a nice bright engine effect that I'm really happy with. So anyway, that is how I built the kit. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and if you've never been to Psych with Mike before, maybe check out a couple other videos and see if it's something that you like, and if so, give us a like, subscribe, and leave any comments that you would like in the comments section, and we would really appreciate it. So again, thank you so much for watching, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.